Geeky classic rock.
Burning Rain, Lion, Hurricane, Dio, Whitesnake. This extremely talented guitarist has worked with some of the most incredible artists of our time. He's toured alongside Aerosmith, Kiss, Def Leppard, and David Coverdale is his big brother. The number 4 has never looked so good as he has been a member of the Dead Daisies since 2016 with founder David Lowy, Dean Castronovo, and the iconic Glenn Hughes. Please, please never button your shirt because we would be sad. Everyone, Doug Aldrich.
Hey, Kiki, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Glad to be with you.
Yes, this is fantastic. And I know that you're in LA, you're home with your wife and your kids, but Doug, you seem to really be making great use of your time. You're doing cameos, you're giving guitar lessons. When did that moment actually hit you and say, yeah, I got to pivot, I got to do something else, and I got to keep this whole thing moving and grooving?
Well, I mean, we've been working the entire time we've been doing the videos, the quarantine videos and stuff like that. And we've been doing as much as we can to kind of keep connected with everybody. But it was, basically, Cameo started as just a fun thing, and it kind of picked up a little bit, and it's fun. It's more like about playing guitars and telling somebody, happy birthday or whatever. I will do that, but I also always want to play for them. And I used to teach when I was, when I was growing up in LA when I first got here, and I had a bunch of students, and then I, started recording and touring and doing stuff, and I stopped teaching. But we had a competition, had some people send in, them playing Dead Daisies songs, and the winner, I gave him an hour lesson, and it was great. It felt so good. So I haven't really taught at all this year. I did it for, like a competition, but it really felt good. And there's a couple, once in a while people will ask me, and I usually say, I don't really do it much, but basically now I'm at home, so I could do some stuff if I wanted to.
Yeah, and I mean, that is so cool. And I think that's one of the things that you and the Dead Daisies have done wonderfully during this entire pandemic. You've stayed connected with everyone. I feel that's totally important, to be in touch and, chatting with everyone, which you do seem to enjoy chatting with your fans.
Yeah, I mean, most of them are friends, that most of these people, I've seen them over the years, and from times in Dio and Whitesnake, and now with the Dead Daisies. So it's like, they're like friends of mine. We'll have, if I'm in some town for a show, there's always people that I know that have, hang out and have a beer after the show or something. But during the pandemic, it's been a little bit more difficult. It's been a little challenging too, because usually when I'm home, I would be home to only maybe write songs or be a dad, and so this year it's been like everything. I've been home to be a dad, and then also having, we have been doing some writing through the year, Glenn and I have, and then, doing whatever we can do to, like you said, stay connected it's really important. So it's kind of been like a juggling act a little bit this year.
Which, again, juggling, you've done it. You are... You're like Dean, though. You're a workaholic. You like to just, to me, it seems like you keep going and going and going. And, whereas you have scenes, I have seen some people just kind of pull back a bit. You're right out there. And I think that's wonderful.
Well, that's cool. I didn't really know I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to keep busy and keep my mind, moving and find something really positive to take out of the time, like this time that we've got. There's got to be a silver lining for us all individually. Something that like maybe somebody's learned how to speak a new language, or somebody's gotten better at something that they were struggling with, or whatever. So that's what I've been trying to do too. Just like everybody.
Yeah, and that's totally awesome. Now, Doug, when you were 18, you went out to LA, like you said. You auditioned for Kiss in 82 when they were looking to replace Ace Frehley. And not a bad start for an 18-year-old to get an audition with Kiss. I mean, did they ever tell you why you didn't get the job?
Well, they told me, Eric Carr told me, I called him, or he called me about a week after my second playthrough with them, and it was like the third meeting, and he said, you did really good, you did really good. And your playing is great and everything. I mean, technically, probably I probably overplayed, but that's kind of what I think everyone was looking for at that time. It was like a guitar, a little bit of shredding, a little bit of that. But he said they needed, I didn't have enough experience, and it's true. That was absolutely true. I had never been, aside from leaving my home to come to California, I had never toured or anything, and that's one of the things that's most important about a band life is finding people that you can hang out with and that you feel comfortable with. And I'm sure that they thought I was a nice kid, but I don't know that they felt comfortable hanging with me, because we were, during that second jam session, they were talking about relationships and stuff like that, and I didn't really have a lot of interest in relationships at that time. I was just me and my guitar in a little apartment, so that's all I could talk about.
Interesting.
I didn't have any, life experiences other than driving across the country. That's it.
That is so interesting that you say that, though. So there wasn't that, personal connection, maybe.
Exactly. When you're around somebody that you're comfortable with, like immediately talking to you, you make me feel comfortable. It's just like, it's easy. But if you're not feeling comfortable around somebody, the relationship doesn't last that long. It's no matter what it is.
Well, thank you for saying that about me. That was very nice. Thank you.
Well, you're very outgoing, friendly, and you do this. You're very good at what you do, obviously. So that you make people comfortable, and then they can talk to you.
Well, thank you, Doug. That is very sweet. Now, the whole Kiss thing, though. So you didn't get the job. Did that say to you, like, how was that for you, though? Because you're 18. I mean, at 18 years old, we all think back and go, oh my gosh, life was so not complicated, but it was complicated. We were teenagers. What did that really push you to do next after that?
It definitely inspired me to try and take it more seriously and do better. I mean, I don't know if you ever heard this part of that story, but Gene, when the first time I met him, we went in the studio and I was playing to some of their tracks as to show how we would record with them. And Gene said, I like that, but do you ever play major scales? And I said, major scale, what is that? And he goes, do, re, mi, fa, so. And I go, oh, of course I know that, and so I started to blend in some major scales. I just didn't know the name of it. I knew the scales, I knew the sound, I just didn't know what it was called. And he goes, good. And then he wrote down 3 songs, and then we had went to have our first jam. But that whole thing made me feel like, okay, I didn't get the job. Maybe I didn't play good enough, or maybe I didn't, whatever. I wasn't, comfortable enough with them or something. But something attracted them to me in the first place. So I got to look at the positive of it.
Right.
And it got me inspired to really want to learn about music and learn about and get better as a player. Constantly, I still pick up the guitar and like just struggle with certain things, and I want to get better at them. To this day. So.
Well, and you're completely self-taught, correct?
Yes, I did take a couple lessons, but it didn't really go great. There was not that connection with the teacher, and so it just I lost interest, and I learned more from playing with other people and people showing me things, and it was so exciting to listen to records and try and figure out what they were doing just from the record, using your ear. Because, at that time there was no YouTube or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just loved it. It's like that playing an instrument to me was like a video game or something. It was like a challenge all the time.
Now, when you did teach, though, Doug, back in the day, when you did a lot of teaching, did you ever learn anything from one of your students?
Absolutely. Tons of things. Like life lesson things, like if somebody was God-given with ability that was insane, didn't necessarily mean they were going to use it, to the best advantage. And then you'd have somebody that just really wanted it so bad and worked hard, and they in the end got better and better and better. And it was just down to hard work and dedication to the instrument. But then, and that's inspiring to me, but then also, of course, there was kids that would play something, and I'd be like, "Wow, that's cool," and or we would talk about, like, they would say, "Hey, this is my first song, and I like the way this sounds," and I'd say, "Well, let's figure out why you like it," and we'd figure out the chords and what was happening, and by doing that, I'd learn myself, about that.
That's really neat.
And sometimes too, kids would bring in, like, they'd go, "Hey man, did you ever hear of this guitar player?" And I was like, "No, I didn't know. I never heard that guy." It happened with John Sykes. Somebody brought in. I didn't have the last Thin Lizzy record, or it was called Thunder and Lightning, the record, and somebody played me John Sykes on that record. I was like, "Whoa, that guy's slamming! He's amazing." So then later he got in Whitesnake, and they made that record. It was really, that was the biggest Whitesnake record. So
always learning, always reaching outside and, taking in what you can. That's what it sounds like you do.
Try to. I still do. I'm not like God-given. God's blessed me with so many things, but like, I really still have to warm up. I have to really push myself to learn, and also I have to push myself to remember, because I'll like work hard on something, and I'll get to a certain point, and then I'll forget about it, and I'll lose that skill. So I always have to keep working, And
I think that's kind of with anything in life, in order to keep doing what we do well and to keep progressing and moving forward, you have to just hone your craft and be open to always working at it.
Absolutely. And I really don't take it for granted too, because like for performing is, you have to perform and stuff, but I really am feeling all of the notes and the music. I really put my heart into it, because you never know when it might be the last time that you get to play because of some kind of freak accident or a pandemic or whatever, so I definitely don't take it for granted.
Now, you've performed with the greats of the greats, and going back to Gene Simmons and Kiss, I read that he kind of dissed you after you tried to reach out to him, which I thought was kind of a funny story. And again, you're still young. Oh my gosh, what did I just do? My life is ruined. But no, it isn't, because you went on and did great things. But now you ended up working with Kiss when you were in Whitesnake, I believe. You did 3 Kiss cruises with the Dead Daisies. Was it awkward, or did he even remember what happened?
That guy is so intelligent. He did remember, because we had well, first of all, let me say this. I didn't get bummed out at all. The main thing, I just felt like I was inspired, and my friends were so, my friends from Philadelphia had all started to come out around that time, and there were some guys that were still wanting to come to LA, and when I was in high school, I was mainly a rhythm guitar player. That was it. And then my friends had a nickname for me called Cubby, which I hated. And Cubby, the Cubster, and a Cubby was because they thought I looked like Cubby O'Brien from the Mickey Mouse show. And I hated it. It'd be like, "Hey, let's go, there's a party, we've got to go pick up Cubby," It was like, "Oh, damn it, man." I hated the name. So then after I moved out to California, and I was kind of like the first one and the Kiss thing happened. People were like, "Yo, did you hear about Cubster? He was jamming with Kiss, man. Cubby, way to go, Cub," And it was like, then all of a sudden I was cooler, it was funny. But
now you're a cool Cubby.
Yeah. But it was just inspiring to meet those guys, and I felt like I was going to just find other gigs down the road, and I've been really lucky, obviously to work with with Ronnie and David Coverdale and Glenn and all the stuff. But to answer your question about Gene, in 1990, I had done a record with the band Hurricane for Enigma, and the record hadn't come out yet. But during that time, I was asked to play on some demos for a band called House of Lords, which was on Simmons Records, and the demos turned out good. And they said, "Hey, we'd love for you to join the band." And I said, "No, I can't because of." We had just done a couple of videos and the record was getting ready to drop, and it would have been super uncool for me to try and leave Hurricane, remember videos used to cost a lot of money back then. Mm-hmm. So Gene kept telling me, he'd say, he came and I said, "Do you remember me?" And he says, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you remember what you said to me last time I talked to you?" And he says, "Yeah." He said, "Don't call here again, or lose my number," whatever it was. And, it was lose my number. That's what it was. Lose this number. And he goes, "Yeah, I remember." I said, "Don't call here again." And I said, "No." He said, lose this number. So he laughed, and I thought it was funny too. I mean, I wasn't embarrassed. I just felt bad for my friends because I thought maybe we were going to get to go backstage at a concert for the first time ever.
Yeah.
But no, then every time I see him, he rarely talks to me. He kind of just jokes. He jokes around a lot.
Really?
Yeah, he's always pulling pranks, or like he'll just come in and say a joke and then he'll split. Yeah, we don't really have those conversations. But I did have those conversations with Paul a lot of times on tours where he was super nice to me on the tour that I did with all the times, but especially with the Dead Daisies, we spent a lot of time together and we'd go have dinner or whatever. And he's an awesome guy. Got a great family. His son, Evan, I'm sure you've probably heard of him, is a great musician, singer. And it was good to reconnect with him,
I mean, again, you have been totally blessed. I mean, the people you've been around, when I started really digging into, I'm like, holy crow. I mean, just to say that you've worked with all of these guys. Anyway.
You want to know what the best one was?
What?
The best one, this is the all-time greatest. I've met a lot of my heroes. I met Jeff Beck.
And you really looked up to Jeff Beck.
Yeah, I love Jeff Beck. He didn't really have a lot to say to me. He was more interested in my wife or whatever than talking to me. But it was still, I got to meet him, and I met him a couple times through different friends. And the last time was with David Coverdale. David and him were friends. But the best one was when we were on tour in 2003. It was the first UK tour I did with Whitesnake, and we were in Brighton, England, which is kind of like it's like the beach area outside of London. And Marco Mendoza, who was playing bass, great bass player.
Love him.
Marco said, "Yeah, Jimmy Page is coming tonight." And I was like, "Come on, Marco, that's jive, And then after the show, he's like, "Yeah, did you see Jimmy on the side of the stage?" No, he was not here. Jimmy Page wouldn't come to our gig. And I forgot about Coverdale Page. And David never said anything. Like maybe he invited him or something. I don't know. But I thought it was just, he was jiving me. So he goes, "Yeah, Jimmy's outside the door right now after the gig. We're in the dressing room." And I said, "Marco, would you shut up? Come on, man." And I opened the door and I'm like, it's Jimmy Page. and he was waiting for David. David was, getting dried off and doing his thing. And I'm like, "Jimmy, you should come hang out with us. Don't wait in the hallway, Jimmy." And it's, kind of like nobody lets Jimmy Page wait in the hallway. You got to invite him in. "Jimmy, what can I get you, man? Come on in." And we started talking, and he was just super cool. And I kept, I just naturally asked him about his Les Paul. I was like, "Where is that guitar? I mean, is it in a vault somewhere? Like, it's like armed guards protecting that guitar? Because that's like the most valuable Les Paul ever," or whatever, And he was telling me, "Yeah, I got my guy to look after it." And then it happened that I would always carry a Les Paul with me to my room or flights or whatever, because otherwise, you know, if it was a day or two off, if you just left your guitar in the case with the road crew, then you wouldn't see it. You wouldn't have a guitar, and I always wanted it with me. So I had a Les Paul there, and I said, Jimmy, would you scratch your initials in this thing? I don't want you to do, like, you don't have to put Jimmy Page, but we'd... And he's like, yeah, I never done that before, you know? And he took a fork, and he put a J, and then at the top, he put a little attachment on the top of the J that made a P into one. And I was like, how cool is that, you know?
Oh, and, man.
Yeah, it was the best. It was the best one. I mean, I could meet, if I met a Beatle or something, it would still be amazing. But Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
And then every time we come to London, he'd always come. He'd always come to the gig, and he remembered my name, and he was always super nice.
That is sweet.
There was one awkward time with him that was, I just kicked myself in the butt every time. We were playing Hammersmith Odeon in London. It was like a famous place where Whitesnake and a lot of bands used to play, and David had kind of rekindled his friendship with Bernie Marsden, who was the original guitar player of Whitesnake, and we were going to have Bernie come out and play a couple songs at the end, like Fool for Your Love, and I think he co-wrote, and also Here I Go Again, which he co-wrote. And so Bernie's standing in the wings, and we go off stage, and David's out like probably 30 meters away from me, 30 yards away from me, out front talking to the audience. And I go back to my amps, I'm, you know, grabbing a drink or something, and there's Jimmy standing on the side, and I was like, hey, Jimmy, how are you? He's like, hey, man. And I grabbed the guitar that he had scratched. This was like probably 6 or 7 years earlier. And I grabbed the guitar, and I go, look, Jimmy here. And I turned it around, and he grabbed it like he wanted to play, like he wanted to jam. And I go, no, look, remember this, Jimmy? And he goes, oh, yeah. But the bottom line is, he wanted to jam. He was ready to go. And but it was like, Bernie Marsden was just in the wings getting ready to be introduced. It was just awkward, you know?
Yeah.
So that was the, you know, if I would have said, okay, Jimmy, come on, it would have blown the moment for Bernie, and David might have been upset about it. And so
but just think of how that moment would have been.
I know. It's like I was caught between a rock and a hard place. And so I made the decision to let Bernie have his moment was supposed to be there. So
okay,
that was it. But Jimmy was always really nice, and he would say, like, every time I'd see him, I'd say, hey, Jimmy, how did you get that acoustic sound live? And he'd get all excited and pull me aside and go, this is what you do. You take a piano pickup and you put it right on the front of the guitar. It's a secret, you know, and it was just like, he got so excited about that stuff, you know?
But the next time you come across Jimmy Page anywhere, you have to just do what your heart tells you to do.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. He's one of those guys that the more time goes on, he's you know, it's less and less you get a chance to see him and talk to him, because he's just, you know, he's like he's royalty. He is actually British royalty. He's OBE, which on British authority or British Empire or something, Order of British Empire.
No kidding.
So he's like, you know, they recognized by the Queen and all that stuff.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's crazy.
And then we have Glenn Hughes, who
come on.
Rock.
I mean, well, we're going to talk about Glenn in just a few minutes, because, oh my God, like, everybody is loving what all of you are doing, but we've got to talk about some other things first, just like Hurricane. I mean, when you were in Hurricane, you were working with Kelly Hansen, and now you're scheduled to go out with Foreigner, hopefully next year. Is this going to be your first time working with Kelly, or have you worked with him already in the past?
Nope, this is the first time. I think it is the first time. I've seen him here and there, you know, over the years. David and I went and saw a Foreigner show or two, and then actually the first time that Mick Jones couldn't had to miss a couple gigs, they called me to fill in the very first time. Since then, they've had a few guys. Joel Hoekstra did it, and some other guys have done it, I think. if he couldn't make the gig, if he had scared, I don't know what was going on. It was something with his family, and so I had to learn all those Foreigner songs, and Kelly was super nice about it. He was helpful, and it was great. And I saw Kelly before the pandemic at a restaurant, and I'm so happy for him. He really is so perfect for that band, and he's become probably one of the, equally as favorite as Lou Gramm to a lot of people.
He is great.
So we are definitely looking forward to those shows, and I think those shows will happen because that's later in the summer. I'm pretty sure those will be all right.
Yeah, I think I saw like mid-June. You guys are headed off to Germany.
Yes, we had plans to go to start in February, and we were calling it the Get Out of the House tour, but that is definitely going to be too soon. But
yeah.
I think summertime will be all right. And Foreigner, it's going to be great, man. The Foreigner band is smoking, and
yeah,
it's all great songs.
I mean, I think in just the fact that this is going to be the first time you're really working alongside Kelly after Hurricane. I mean, that's how many years is that? How many decades?
Well, it's definitely been a couple. It was, the Hurricane time. We had a blast when it was a little rough making that record for me because I just was kind of butting heads with the producer. But I've learned that he was trying to do exactly the right thing, and I was just a stubborn guitar player kid, that it didn't cause any trouble or anything, but it was just like he had to extract me to extract some openness to try some things that I wasn't really wanting to do. I was coming from a different place. And now I realize it was a great experience, but but Kelly and I got along great until we had a couple of run-ins on the road where we got in fist fights, and there was one in particular that I'll never forget that we got into this. It was stupid, we were out having dinner after a sound check, and we were joking around on the table, and we were joking around, and his food had just come, and he wanted us to kind of all be quiet, and we didn't want to. We were, we thought it was funny. I thought he was kidding. And he picked up his plate and he went to another table. I'm like, what? So I went over and talked to him, and I found out he was not kidding. But I was like, dude, we didn't do it on purpose. And he said, yeah, you were on purpose trying to disrupt my meal. And now it's very important to him. His meal is a time when he's told me, he goes, I want to recharge. I want to get my head straight for the gig, whatever. So then he went outside waiting for a taxi without us. And I started to get upset about it. I was like, man, okay, you made your point. And he still came at me. And so we got face to face, and he grabbed the side of my hair and started pulling me down. And,
what?
And I punched him in the throat.
Oh, bad spot. Bad spot.
Yeah, in bad spot. But he sang his ass off. That kid, he sings his ass off every night. He's got an indestructible voice. Even if he gets punched in the throat, he still delivers.
Well, I don't think anyone's going to try that, man. I don't think. I cannot. First of all, I can't picture you or him getting in a fist fight. Anyway.
It's when you're kids and you're like brothers, you have those moments, There was another time we were on the bus and we started wrestling around on the floor. I don't even remember what it was about, but the bus driver locked up the wheels and the bus went sideways, and he said, you guys are going to get off this bus and settle this, because I'm not driving while you guys are fighting. There's no way. And those are the only two times we had run-ins. But when I see Kelly again, I got to tell him, I got to find out, do you remember that day? You were really, really pissed off at us, and we really didn't mean to upset you, so just for the record.
And
watch, he'll get mad, and then we're going to fist fight again and get tossed off the tour.
And note to self, when Kelly is eating, there is no interrupting him. So just remember that when you guys head off to Germany.
I respect that. That's why when I saw him in the restaurant the other last month, I guess it was the end of last year, maybe, he was sitting with his manager, And I was just really polite. I was like, "Hey, Kelly, how are you, man? Good to see you." And they were both, I know both those guys. So we had a quick chat, but I didn't hang out too long because I didn't want to piss them off.
It's like tiptoeing around Kelly Hansen at certain times. That's so funny. So what is the one thing you like to do to recharge before a show then, since we're on that subject?
That's a good question. I really have a routine that I do that is, as far as recharging for me, getting a good night's sleep and then being able to go to the gym or something and get my blood going in the day really helps me, that helps my mind be centered and clear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there's a kind of a routine with the Dead Daisies that is pretty much, you eat a little something before, but not too much, just a little something so you have energy or carbs, whatever, to basically make it through a couple hours show. But before the show goes, the last thing that we do, that me and David started doing it. David Lowy would say, let's do a run through of this, let's talk our way through the set list. So the set list is on the wall and it changes periodically. And we basically would talk about, every aspect of what we're going to try and accomplish for the night. Like, okay, during this song, remember last night we did that and it worked out really good. Let's do that again. And hey, let's tighten up this ending on this one. And we go through the ins and outs of the whole show. And so we turned into a funny thing called the briefing. We'd get together for the briefing, and some guys were into it. Some guys maybe didn't want it as much, but for me, I really loved it.
Yeah,
because it got me focused on thinking about just for the last minute before the show, thinking about everything, and then forgetting everything and just playing. But that little moment of mental practice, I liked it, and so that's something that I really now I do it with anybody. I did a couple gigs last year with Burning Rain to support a project, and we did the same thing, and it worked out good, because in the heat of the moment, you forget things like the endings or how you talked about you were going to do this, but then in the heat of the moment, you forget it. But if you remind yourself before you go on stage, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that has to be kind of hard sometimes, I would think, because if you don't have notes and, the crowd has got you going either in one direction or another, how could you possibly remember all of that?
I think that's why it's kind of a good thing to do subconsciously. It'll set you up. And that's something good for anything, I think, is to sit down and I don't think you call it meditating, but just visualize what you want to accomplish at a certain point, whether it's short term, like today, what I want to accomplish is talking to you, and then I've got other things I need to do this afternoon. So I thought about it this morning. I took a picture of the email that I was going to talk to you, and that sets me straight. I got it sorted out for the day, and then visualize where you want to be as a musician. What are you lacking, and where do you want to go, and visualize it. I think it's healthy.
So where do you want to go?
I just want to be, I visualize that I want to be better, and I've never had a perfect show. I don't know if I ever will, but I've tried to. I want to. I've got little issues that I got to overcome that are I've got one ear that's got tinnitus, so it's sometimes can be a little pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But I'm going to overcome that somehow, and then and that's from Dio. That's from being on stage with Ronnie and having his voice in the side of my head so loud that it was making my eyes rattle. And I told him, I go, Ronnie, it's just too loud. He goes, what? He's like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, nothing. I just can't go up there too much when you're singing because it's just taking my head off. But
now, is it because of a piece you had in your ear, or why was it so loud?
This is prior to in-ears. This was in 2002. In-ears was kind of some people were doing it, but most rock bands weren't really doing it yet. And Ronnie's voice he was super powerful, and so the guy would they call it ringing out the PA. They'll take the microphone and kind of walk around the stage and try and get rid of the feedback spots.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll try and take, if it's a certain frequency, they'll kind of dip that frequency on the equalizer, and then you can walk around the stage and get the mic as loud as possible. But nobody's voice is as powerful as Ronnie's, or David's, or these guys, these singers. And Ronnie would just come out and was like, "Holy Dive!" and he'd be like, "Ah!" It's so freaking loud. And he'd be like, "Doug, can you turn up? And I've got like 4 Marshall stacks cranked, and he wants me to turn up.
It's like, no.
But then, well, I did. I did. I mean, but eventually I started to realize that my ears were ringing a lot, and so I got some earplugs made that would actually like take down the level, and that helped for a while. But then in-ears came into effect with Whitesnake and still to this day, and I don't really like them because I end up cranking them too hard, and as the show goes on, I crank them more and more and more. By the end, they're blasting, and my ears are still ringing. So I've decided. This year we got together and did a rehearsal, which was awesome because it hasn't been a chance to play really. And during the rehearsal, I just used some foamies in my ears, and it was a lot better.
Yeah. Hey, you got to find whatever works for you.
Yeah, because when you got ringing in your ears, that messes with your pitch. Messes with your singing and all that stuff. So
yeah. Now
I got to be careful.
And I mean, working with the legendary Ronnie James Dio, I can't. How fortunate you were able to do that. Now, you did have an unreleased, unheard demo. Did anything ever happen with that? Is that still something, or is it somewhere? What's going on with that?
I have it. I don't know if Wendy. I'm sure Wendy found it with. She had Wynn Davis, who's the producer, go through Ronnie's computer. I'm sure they found that song, but if not, I have it, and I see Wendy periodically. Mm-hmm. Last time was, I think it was in the spring. There was something before the shutdown, and I saw her at a party, and we had a blast, but we never talk about it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like a little bit too still. It's a little sore subject for everybody still.
Yeah. Now, in the short time you did work with Ronnie, what is one thing, besides you losing some of your hearing, what's the one thing that you learned from him that you still carry with you and use today?
He was fearless. He would completely own the stage. Like whatever, it didn't matter who came before him or who was coming after. He would own that stage, and I still visualize that in the same way, like how somebody like Kobe Bryant would own the basketball court. He would be in command of it, and that I always think of myself like that's something I learned from Ronnie. He really pushed me to be that way, to own the stage as much as I could,
And you certainly do that. And it just kind of blows my mind how you say you still feel like there are things that you have to work on. And I got to tell you, watching you and listening to you, it's just hard you're a perfectionist, obviously, because it's hard for me to fathom you saying that.
It is true that I would be considered that. And that's actually, if I was going to give myself advice, I would say loosen up a little bit and don't be so hard on yourself. But you can't, as a perfectionist or somebody that's kind of like a perfectionist, I guess, it's hard to do that. You just want to, like, there'll be times when, and there'll be times when you do your show and you're like, yeah, that wasn't that great.
Yeah.
That wasn't my best.
Yeah.
And then someone will call you and go, that was such a great show. I loved it. And you're like going, are they messing with me, or is it like, what? How is that possible that they think that was a good show?
Yeah,
but it happens, So, but yeah, I do need to keep being better, trying to get better and trying to learn. It's not getting better. I mean, it's not about getting better. It's about learning more and feeling your self-esteem. If you just lay back and just be like, okay, I'm as good as I ever need to be, and no one's going to teach me anything. I mean, I think that would just make things boring.
Oh, no, I get it. You can't be complacent in your business. You can't. Now, when you were with Whitesnake, you toured with, again, the best of the best, Def Leppard, Europe, Aerosmith. Who did you ever tour with that you had looked up to and just blew you away and made you say, oh my gosh, I love you even more than I did years ago?
A lot. I mean, all those bands that you mentioned, they're all really nice guys, and especially Steven Tyler was really fun. I knew he was he was like a high energy person. I had met him a couple times, and he was always, super high energy, and I'd say like, hey, I met you once from David Coverdale. He goes, I remember you. And so my name's Doug. He goes, I remember. And he was always like really up, and it was fun to be around him, just to watch him. His like larger than life character is really true. It's like, that's how he is. He's just bouncing off the walls, and his voice on the tours was so great. I mean, it was incredible how he would sing, same with all those guys like David, and they're all brilliant. But as far as, I'll tell you one thing that happened when there was a guy. Do you remember the guitar player Gary Moore?
Yes.
Yeah. So I met Gary. Gary Moore was supporting us on a European run, and I was so excited to meet him. And when I met him, I felt like he kind of shaded me. He kind of blew me off. And it turns out he wasn't. He was just shy. He was super shy.
Really?
And yeah, so by the end of the tour, I got to be a little bit, I wouldn't say we were friends, but at least we were friendly, and I could be around him, and he was like not going into his shell. But I didn't understand, because the guy's so amazing. He was a huge inspiration to my playing when I was younger, and still, actually, I still listen to him. And I couldn't imagine why he was so shy, He was a singer and a guitar player. He's got to be out there, but it's just how he was. Off stage, he was like, super, super quiet and shy. But after being on tour for a while, you start to loosen up.
Yeah, but see, you never know, though. You never know where somebody's headspace is at.
Yeah.
When you first meet them.
The one person who you do know where their headspace is at is Ronnie, because Ronnie would tell you exactly. If he was happy, he would say, it was a good show, mate. And if he was not happy with something, he would let you know. And the thing about Ronnie was great is, so his heart was on his sleeve, so he'd let you know, and then afterwards he would let it go, and it was out. He would get on with it.
That's a good thing.
It was really cool. You really knew where you stood all the time with him.
And that's pretty cool, because again, it's true. You don't want to hold stuff in because it hurts. And like you said, it allows you to move on. Yeah,
there's no reason for that for those kinds of, people do that stuff. They'll hold it in, and it's hurtful for them, but it's also a kind of a mind game a little bit, especially if it's the boss that's doing it.
Yeah.
So, there are those situations where you have to be prepared for that kind of stuff.
Right. Now, when you were with Whitesnake, you toured with Journey a couple of times, I think once in 2009 and then again in 2013. Now, Dean was the drummer, and here's where full circle comes in. Now you're working with Dean. Tell us about those tours with Journey and what it was like working alongside of those guys.
It was a blast, because I loved Neil Schon, and he was super cool. And I never got to, I can't remember if Jeff Scott Soto was in the band, if we ever did anything together. Actually, I can't remember if it was him or Steve O'Jerry, but we did some gigs together in Italy a long time ago. And then we didn't see him for a while. And then on the next headlining thing, co-headline we did with Journey, that's when Dean and I got to be friends. And Dean's such he's such a sweetheart. He's a great guy, and he reminds me of Steven Tyler. He's got so much energy.
Yes, he does.
We hit it off. We would like hang out on days off, and I have a tattoo of a dragon with my son's name on it that he said, let's go get tattoos. It's on me, you know. And so we had a tattoo party in the hotel, and it was a blast. And those guys, sometimes they would headline over us, and sometimes we'd headline over them. It just depended on where we were.
That's cool. That is neat. And Dean Castronovo and Jack Blades, you form the Revolution Saints. You released 3 albums. And I have to tell you, Doug, you guys sound perfect. The sound, everything. And I got to tell you, I think personally, Light in the Dark. Now, you released that back in 2017. I totally think that song would be appropriate to be the song of 2021.
Wow, that's a huge compliment.
But think about it, right?
I would say that lyrically, you know, yeah, there's a lot of things that you could relate to that based off of this year. But it started off being Dean's, that band, or not, it's not a band, it's a project really, but it started off being Dean's solo record, because Dean is a great singer, as everybody knows, and he was offered a record deal, and they just asked him, you know, who do you want to get to play on it? And he says, I want my buddy Doug on guitar, and I want my buddy Jack on bass. And then when the record company thought about it, they said, well, this could be a band, you know, it could be like a power trio thing or something. And so we went ahead and made the first record, and I thought, well, that's it. You know, there's not really, we didn't tour. We actually had some really great offers for tours and stuff, but we couldn't get it together. I had just gotten out of Whitesnake and was basically at home being a dad, and Dean was busy as hell with Journey, and Jack was busy as hell with Night Ranger, and we couldn't do it. So I thought, that's it. But then we decided, you know, let's later down the road, we decided, let's do something together one more time, and we all agreed to do it. And I thought, that's it. And then finally they came and said, we really want a third record. And I was like, why do you guys want more records when we don't ever tour to do anything to support it? And they said, just because people like it. They like that music for working out, for driving, for riding on the train to work, whatever. They like it. So we thought, okay, well, that's cool. Because, you know, sometimes you get, be doing promotion or something, and somebody would say, you guys aren't really a band. You don't tour. You're just doing the records, you know. And it's like, yeah, you're right. It's kind of not cool. Because he goes, you know, people would say, you know, people really, they invest in you, and they want to see you play live, and you never do.
Yeah, but you had other stuff going on too, right? I mean, how many projects do you do at the same time? You do a lot.
Well, I'm trying to basically have it be Dead Daisies for the most part full time as my day gig, and that's my biggest priority, because you do get stretched a little thin, and also it gets a little weird for fans where they go, what band is this guy in, you know?
Yeah.
But I just love playing, and so if I get some free time, I might do something on the side, but otherwise I'm going to pretty much focus on Dead Daisies at this point. And
in 2016, you go into the Dead Daisies. Dizzy Reed left. You replaced the amazing Richard Fortus. Guys of Guns N' Roses, they went on their huge Not in This Lifetime tour. You had John Corabi and Marco Mendoza. They were in the Dead Daisies along with Brian Tichy. And of course, David Lowy, the founder. I just spoke with him not too long ago. He's such a nice guy. Now, how did the Dead Daisies collaboration happen for you, Doug? Well, it was 2015. I was on tour with Glenn. I had been off the road. I've been out of Whitesnake for about a year and off the road. And was doing this gig in Vegas, and I was just kind of going out of my mind. It was great because I had gone through a relationship breakup, and I basically had left my wife alone too long while I was in Whitesnake, and we just grew apart, and I left her alone to be at home, full-time mom for my son, and I didn't realize, I thought that's what everybody would want, but it's very difficult when you're alone to raise a kid. It's so difficult. Yeah. It's hard on the parent, and so she needed to get her
she needed to get something in her life that was going to make her happy, and I wanted to be with my son. So I took this gig in Vegas, and it was great because I could live in the hotel, and I only worked a couple hours a night, and I was with him all the rest of the time. But I started to lose my mind out there a little bit. It was like just kind of a little bit of the monotony of what I was doing. I wasn't used to that, and it was getting to me. And just at that time, Glenn Hughes called me and goes, I'm doing this tour, and I don't have a guitar player. I'd love for you to do it. And I was like, I'm in. Let's go. It was a power trio thing, and he agreed to do a song that I wrote with David, just so I had a little bit of a little bit of cash in the game, and it was awesome. We had a blast touring, and the Dead Daisies called me and said, Richard got injured in a motorcycle accident. Could you fill in? Those guys were all friends of mine, and I was aware that they were doing really well. They got Karabi, and they were doing great, but I couldn't. I had committed to Glenn for a couple shows in Japan, and it wouldn't have been good to back out. So I said, I can't do it. But then shortly after, they called me back and go, hey, don't tell anybody, but Guns N' Roses is getting back together, and Richard and Dizzy are going, obviously, and Richard recommended that we call you. And of course, I already had worked with Marco and Whitesnake and Brian Tichy and Whitesnake too. And I grew up with John Karabi. I met him in high school.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, so it was like a no-brainer. I had a conversation with David, and he told me, this is how I think we should work together, as you being the lead guitar player and me being the rhythm guitar player. And I said, I'm open for whatever. But after I got to jam with David, he's got a kick-ass, it's innocent and honest kind of guitar style, but it's kick-ass. He's got a huge sound, and he just blasts, and he grew up with those AC/DCs and Rose Tattoo. These Australian bands are just straight ahead hard rock, and that's how he plays, and it's different than mine, and he explained that, and the styles go together really well. So they called me back and said, we're going to make a record, and we want you to do it. And it was like, cool, let's do it. That was a great thing, because I wouldn't have been as excited to just join a band and fill in for somebody as I was to make a record, and they wanted to kind of change up the sound a little bit. David didn't want to, he felt like he loved Dizzy, and Dizzy was great, but he wanted this next version to be a little heavier, a little more guitar oriented, maybe. So that's what we did. And it was awesome working with my bros, and David's, we're family now. So it's really cool.
And, when Dean joined, and then Glenn is now the lead singer of the Dead Daisies, it feels to me like, yes, the Dead Daisies have always been great, but now with the four of you, it just seems like it was a rebirth of the band.
Well, it's definitely, you're right. It is a rebirth. It's a revolution in a way. It's a fresh start, because anytime you change a singer, there's going to be, a big sound change. It's just how it is. I mean, everybody that's had a new singer does that. Maybe not everybody, but I think it's a good thing that it's a different sound, because John was great. John did an amazing job, and we're definitely, everyone's amicable, and he's still part of the family. Same with Marco. Marco's a giant of a musician. But Glenn comes in and brings his own thing, and it really is a cool mix with what we already had, which is, two guitars and Dean on drums, and now we've got Glenn with his monstrous bass tone, and he's got a, as everyone knows, he's just got a mind-blowing voice. Yeah. He's gotten better and better as the years have gone on, and he really brought a lot of fresh things to the band that I think are good. It's like, it's kind of like Deep Purple, when Ian Gillan left and David Coverdale joined. I mean, it's like it went in a little bit different direction, but it was great.
And you guys are so I mean, you're a rock band, but you released the dance version of Unspoken, which we've been playing it on Kiki.fm, and I absolutely love it. But what made you guys, or was it even your decision to do a dance version of that song? Where did that come from?
It was a situation where these DJs in Germany wanted to do it. They thought it was a cool song, and they thought they could make it into something really cool, which I think they did. I mean, we didn't have really much to do with it other than them using it, but it turned out cool. I really like it. It's very kind of relaxing in a way.
It's fun. Well, I don't relax when I listen to it. I'm just being honest. I'm grooving. I'm dancing. And I mean, really, you got to work with both lead singers of Deep Purple, David Coverdale, who you call your big brother, Glenn Hughes. Yeah. How is it different, though, to work with Glenn now than when you worked with him in his solo band?
So working with Glenn has been pretty much the same. Glenn is Glenn, and it's great because he came in, wanting to be a part of a band that was going to be a rock band, and that's what he's got. He kind of had that with Black Country Communion, but again, that's a situation where those guys are so busy that they can't really tour. So the Dead Daisies is committed to touring, and Glenn's really excited about it. And obviously, he put a lot into the album, so he's really excited about playing that live.
Absolutely, we can't wait to see you guys play live. And Doug, you once mentioned that there's luck involved to be able to stay in this business. And David Lowy, he actually says the same thing, and you guys hang out together. So I guess, you may be thinking alike, but have you always believed that luck is part of the success besides all of the hard work you put in?
No, I've kind of come to realize that after looking back at how lucky I've been, and trying to push that forward so that I don't get, I just got to stay grounded, for me. I need that. So I think that it was just in the beginning, I was just going full out, kicking ass as hard as I could. And some things worked out, some things didn't. And I just kept going, not thinking about it. But as I recently think about the past and what I've done, I can only say that I was really lucky or at the right place, so you got to work hard. You got to try and be cool and be a good person. And you got to work hard and have that luck so that when you if you are in the right place at the right time or lucky to bump into somebody or whatever, that you're prepared.
Well, the great thing is you're cool, you're a hard worker, and I can tell you're a really good person. And today it was a total pleasure to speak with you. And everyone, do not forget to follow Doug on all of his socials, as well as his other bands, Burning Rain, Revolution Saints. And of course, make sure you are following the Dead Daisies. Doug, all of the best to you. Love to you and your family. And we cannot wait to get you back on stage very, very soon.
I know. Kiki, thank you so much for what you do, because without you, we wouldn't be able to get through this pandemic without, having shows like yours and the music. And so we really appreciate you. Thanks to you again for everything and for taking the time to have me on the show. And you have a Merry Christmas.